Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
Oh, yes, we're back. We finished up week 3. We are into week 4 of the NFL season, and it is time for Dynasty Nerds on the Better Sports Network. I am your host, Garret Price, and we've got a great show planned for tonight. Really excited. There's a lot of things that happened in the NFL this week, and we did a segment a little while back with Mr. Tyler Soto himself, the guy that's normally behind the scenes, making sure that I look good, I sound good. He's actually going to join us. He's the Falcons fanatic. Of course, we'll touch on the Falcons at some point, but lots of things to talk about with him in week 3 of the NFL season. We're going to talk about what things that we've seen so far, which things are legit and which things are not. Like what's legit, what's unlegit, not legit. We're going to talk about all those things here in a couple minutes. And then Dennis Bennett's going to be joining me. And I'm excited to do this. It's probably too early, but through 3 weeks, the deck has been shuffled a little bit. We have what we assume the season's going to look like. We have, thank you, appreciate it. This is the go-to comfy sweatshirt for me. We have what we assume the season's going to be like. We have the players that we think are going to do well. And then a couple weeks in, everything gets flipped on its head. Some guys that we thought would be better aren't. Some guys that we didn't think would produce this early are. So we're going to touch on all of those things when we do a redrafting. That's right. We're already redrafting this class to see how much changed from just a couple months ago when people were drafting this rookie class for the first time. What's changed between then and now? What do the running backs look like? What do the quarterbacks look like? The receivers, the tight ends. Some guys have really broken out at each one of those positions. And so I'm curious to see where Dennis takes some of those guys, where I end up taking some of those guys. I think it's going to be super fun. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Let's bring Tyler on. Tyler, how's it going, my man? Oh, I can't hear you.
Yep, that's probably because I have my thing on mute. That sounds about right.
You're used to muting it, so we don't hear anything on our end. And now you're a guest. You get to be unmuted.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I will let that one slide. But no, it's been good. Would be better if the Falcons had won on Sunday, but that was just a brutal showing right there all the way around.
Yeah, it wasn't their best. Let's start with them because they started off 2-0. And then this week, obviously, they had a loss to a good team in the Detroit Lions. I think most people pegged them to win the division at the beginning of the year. That's looking like just as likely as it was preseason. They're 2-1 so far, playing very good football overall. But with these Atlanta Falcons, we talked about the potential for them to win the division on the onset. Looking at the division now, do you still feel like they are in the mix, favorites? Like, where would you put them in this division?
I'd still put them at the front for now. The entire division had a pretty dismal showing this past weekend. Yeah. But so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Saints with Derek Carr's injury, because I don't know if Jameis is still that guy anymore. And I also don't believe in Dennis Allen as a head coach whatsoever. So that'll be interesting. I was pretty high on the Bucs, and they did not show up on Monday night at all. I really thought that they were going to beat the Eagles. They didn't.
Really?
It wasn't even close. Yeah. They were one of the teams I had with the upset over the week, but that game was awful all the way around from them too, with the exception of Mike Evans, who is always a stud. Carolina.
He could have had another touchdown. He had a couple passes that he dropped early there.
Yeah, he had a couple, but Carolina, no. That's just a no. That's not going to happen.
Hard
even though Andy Dalton, for whatever reason, decided to throw like the third most passing yards of the week. That came out of nowhere for some reason. But yeah, other than that, I'd still go ahead and say it's Atlanta's to lose.
Okay.
But it's going to be interesting. I'm trying to remember who they play this week. It's Jacksonville in London. That's right. And I know their schedule does get a little bit tougher, but I will say for now, it is Atlanta's to lose.
Okay. So what do you think is legit and what is not legit on this team? Bijan Robinson, you're not a guy that spends tons of time like looking at college prospects and stuff, but you knew even somebody that's not spending crazy amounts of time, you knew who Bijan Robinson coming in was. You knew he was the best back in the class. You knew all about that. Has he lived up to your expectations? Is he legit?
I would say yes so far. This last game isn't necessarily his fault because one of the things that is fake on this team that isn't legit, that offensive line is still bad. They need some work on there. It's not as bad as recent years, but it still needs some work. So that is, I will let this 1 week go as like an outlier, but he is, I think, everything we've hoped for so far, and he'll just keep building off that. I think the defense for this team is also pretty legit. They're stingy. They're a lot better than what they have been since I think the Super Bowl run. They are actually pretty decent. But the quarterback play is pretty bad. It needs a lot of work. And to also be fair to Desmond, the coaching calls also those need to work. The offensive play calls are pretty bad. So I think Arthur Smith might need to give that up, hire an OC, probably not this season, but pretty soon. Or I actually don't even know if they have an OC. So he should just needs to give up the play calling altogether.
Yeah. That I think is the biggest thing. Sedated forecast. Is there any chance they actually move Pitts, or is that just wishful thinking by Cowboys fans?
That's all wishful thinking. So I saw that Des Bryant posted that on Twitter, basically saying get Kyle Pitts out of Atlanta and get him into Dallas. And what's he gonna do? Have Dak short him by 10 yards every play? Like, no, he's not going to work there either. And they like Ferguson. They're not going to just trade for Kyle Pitts. Stop it. Right. It's not going to happen.
Right. Nope. That's one of those wishful thinking moves. I think there's no motivation for Atlanta to move him. Somebody would have to absolutely just give them a king's ransom for them to have any desire to move him. Now, is it weird that they drafted him in the first place not to use him? Sure, but to give him up, I think it would have to be an absolute king's ransom. All right, let's move on to some other big stories from this week. How legit is the Miami Dolphins offense? Because we just saw them put up a 70 burger on Denver. They've been, Tua's been incredible. And we'll talk about some of my not so good calls, but this has been probably, I would say, arguably my best offseason call, picking Tua as the MVP, Tyreek Hill Offensive Player of the Year, them to win the division. Like, I'm feeling great about that prediction and that call. They look unstoppable at the moment. How legit do you think that team is overall?
I think they're pretty legit. They're really fun to watch. And just watching some of the clips that I saw on Twitter afterwards, Mike McDaniel is able to get just insane spacing for his receivers. Just these guys are wide open. Now, granted, Denver might be tanking a little bit, but the Dolphins are still really, really good. That offense is really, really good. I know people remember Tua had the concussions last year. When he was healthy, he was like, I don't want to say top 5 fantasy QB, but he was at least top 10. He was really good when he was healthy last year.
He was.
Yep. So, of course, that's going to come out this year. And then they bring, make sure I pronounce his name right. I think it's Achane now. So now they bring Achane. And then they have
Achane, like Jackie Chan.
It might be Achane. Okay, you might be right on that, like Jackie Chan. So now they bring Achane.
That's what I'm going to start calling him. Devon Jackie Achane.
Devon Jackie Achane. I'm going to remember that. That's a good one. But yeah, so you bring him in, and he has his coming out party. And the offense is just humming on all cylinders. Now, the defense, we'll see if it can hold, because they do play Buffalo. But I think right now I have Miami as the 4th best team, and I have Buffalo in front of them. Okay. If Miami beats Buffalo, then that can flip. So, okay. But I'm all in on them. I think they're really, really good, and they're really fun to watch.
They are. They're an absolute blast. I mean, this team is just predicated on speed, speed, and more speed. They have 4 of the fastest players in football on their team. Like it's truly unreal. I mean, Achane was literally an Olympic level sprinter. He I think holds records for the 200-meter at Texas A&M. Like, dude's legit fast. What's that?
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say they are
one of the fastest 40 times. Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill. You don't even have to question that. Like, they're stupid fast.
Yeah, honestly, they are everything that Al Davis wanted the Raiders in the mid-2000s to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example, because you remember he drafted all these dudes that were speedsters. They couldn't do anything else, but they could run the fastest out of anybody, even though Darius Hayward-Bay had no hands whatsoever.
None.
But that's pretty much what they are. They are what Al Davis wanted the Raiders to be, and they look great, and they have a perfect head coach at the helm.
Yeah. No, they do. They look really good. And honestly, that defense isn't bad either. And Sadie DeFork's exactly right. They get Jalen Ramsey back too.
That's right.
So that's a big get towards the end of the season there. That just makes that team that much more legit. But you're right. Their big litmus test, really, it's this week. They play the Buffalo Bills this week. And so that's going to be a huge game and kind of really measuring, are they now the new king of the castle? Are they now the head of the division and arguably one of the teams to beat in the NFL? Because right now, I don't think any offense is playing better. We'll see how long that lasts. Do teams catch up? Defenses learn and adapt and adjust, but there's only so much you can do with that much speed. And if Tua continues to be as accurate as he has been, and that's the hard part, when you have somebody as fast as Tyreek and Achane and all these guys, Waddle, they put up 70 points. They didn't even have Jalen Waddle in the offense.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Unreal. So when you have all of those weapons, your hope is that they don't make the perfect play, because if they make the perfect play, you can't stop it. Like, there's nothing you can do. A perfectly thrown ball is going to beat perfect defense every time. So there's only so much you can do. So when you add that level of speed to the level of accuracy that we're getting out of Tua right now, you might as well go home. You might as well go home because you're not stopping. And he gets rid of the ball so quick. Like, it's truly a match made in heaven. So let's go from one of my best calls to what's looking like arguably my worst call. The Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears right now look like—
I told you.
You did. You did. They're looking bad. And of course, like, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And that's not even counting the game. Like, just the week leading up to the game last week. Like, the bad comments being made by players at coaches and them getting robbed, and like, just it was all bad news for them last week. And then the thing that you want to do to get rid of all of that negative attention, all of that negative PR, all of that negative everything, is you want to go out and play football. And, oh, yeah, you get to play the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that's just brutal. After the week they had to have to then go play the Chiefs is brutal. So am I completely giving up on them? No, but I got to admit, it's looking rough. I mean, absolutely rough right now.
It's funny because you say, am I completely giving up on them? No, you should. They are awful.
No.
They are an awful team. It's 3 weeks, but have they looked any part convincing in any one of the 3 games? They really haven't.
No. I agree. It has been bad. But here's the thing. Here's why I haven't fully given up. Would it surprise me if they go like 2 wins and get the first pick and move on? Wouldn't surprise me in the least, although then I could see Justin Fields in Atlanta. But all of that being said,
that's a no. We'll just leave it right there. That's a no. I don't want that.
The hard yes. But all of that being said, for as bad as it has been, for Justin Fields to go from really accurate passer in college to in the NFL to like, what is he even reading? Like, there's something missing there. And I don't know if someone broke Justin Fields along the way, or because like now he's even forgotten how to run and scramble and get yards with his legs. Like something is inherently broken. And I don't know if it's the coaching staff. I don't know if it's Justin. I don't know what it is, but I've seen players often tread water. Like they go from college to the NFL and they don't improve upon anything. And they're just the same exact player, which isn't going to cut it in the NFL. I very, very rarely see somebody regress in the NFL. And that's what's happened. Is it's almost like Justin Fields has regressed. And it's puzzling. It's truly baffling to me. I do not understand it.
I think part of it is it's a little bit of everyone's fault. So it's definitely the coaching for the Bears. So much so that I bet $50 with one of my friends that Eberflus is the first coach fired in season. Like he sucks. Yeah, he's got to go. He's awful. So part of it is definitely the coaching. I think part of it is I think Justin Fields just doesn't have that much confidence in himself right now. And to be perfectly honest, if I played for that team, I wouldn't either because they're terrible. And even then, I don't know if he had all that much to begin with. And I say that because you brought up the point that he's a really accurate passer in college. I have solely been on the hill that the receivers at Ohio State made Justin Fields, not the other way around. So I think
I'll agree with that to a point. I'll agree with that to a point because I do think there's some of that where when you have an incredible receiving core, that helps cover and mask some things. But you still have to get it in their general vicinity in a place that they can catch the football. Look at CJ Stroud. Very similar receiving core between those two guys. And CJ Stroud is slinging it right now.
Yeah, he looks good, actually.
He's dropping dimes over good defenses with arguably a worse receiver core than Justin Fields has. Like, he's doing it with, a bunch of guys that before the season, would you have drafted any of them for your fantasy football team? I don't know. Probably not. So it's really interesting. So I agree with you to a point that did his receivers make him look better? I think that is true. But the one thing I will say that was a little bit of a concern, and maybe this is where it's showing itself, because I don't think it was as much of an accuracy thing. It was that the Buckeye receivers got open so often that he never had to go through his progressions. The first guy in his reads he was usually open. So you didn't have to go to your second and third reads. Your first read was typically available and open. So he didn't have to. So that's the only thing that I can think of, because when you look at the accuracy metrics, he was very accurate. I just don't know that he truly learned how to read defenses because he didn't have to. That's the only thing I can fathom.
That's interesting to think about. And I'll be honest, you could be 100% right on that. That's something to think about. But I also think I keep calling him a bust, and to me he is, but I could see him going somewhere else that has a stable organization, not just the coaching staff, the organization as a whole. And he does better. I won't say like he does really well, but I'll say he does better. Because I honestly think that, let's say the Bears do fall to the number one pick, and let's say Caleb Williams decides to go to the draft and not go back to school, and they get him, I think Caleb Williams is in the same boat. He's going to suck. And it's not his fault. The talent is there. The Bears are just awful. They're super inept. That's the way it is. I mean, there's nothing that he can really do about it. As long as he stays in Chicago, he's kind of stuck. Yeah,
it's a tough spot. So that was probably, we went from my best call to probably my worst call. Bazera, we have a section between roughly 9:45 and 10:15. I'll answer any and all trade questions that I can get to. So I will absolutely get to that question. Just give me about 20, 30 minutes or so. So that was, we went, like I said, from probably the best to the worst. But there's a few other things that I want to know. Is it legit or is it not legit? And let's go. We covered your hometown group. Let's cover mine now. The Cleveland Football Browns. The whole You could ask this on both sides of the coin here. The defense. Is the defense legit? Because so far they've been playing like the top defense in football. We know Jim Schwartz became the defensive coordinator there. They've got some incredible pieces. They traded for Zadarius Smith this offseason. So you have him on one side, Myles Garrett on the other side, a bunch of guys in the secondary that are first and second round picks. So it's really seemingly coming all together. Is it legit or no? What do you think, Heavy T?
This is a tough one because their next two games are brutal. So you play Baltimore. Now, thank God they're at home, but you play Baltimore and then you play San Francisco. Yeah. So those next two games are going to be tough. I'm going to say for now, it is legit. Okay. We were not expecting now I know he probably played hurt, but we weren't expecting the Bengals to be that bad to start the season.
Right.
The Browns defense showed up, played him really well. So I'll give them that. They lost to the Steelers, but that was not the defense's fault. The defense did everything they were supposed to.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then they held Tennessee to 3. Okay. I will give them a legit pass for now. And even if they lose to Baltimore, depending on what the final score is, what the stats are,
is it 13
I might
to
still
10?
let them have it.
Right.
Yeah, if it's 13 to 10,
yeah.
If it's 13 to 10, Lamar Jackson under 100 yards rushing, then okay, I'll still probably say they're legit.
Yeah.
But those next two ones are going to be massive because that San Francisco game, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Samuel, like how are you going to defend all those dudes? That is going to be, I think, the game right there that tells me, is this team legit or not? But for now, I will say they are.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm leaning towards that too. I think Jim Schwartz has been known to be a really good play caller in the NFL. His head coaching stuff hasn't quite worked out great, but as far as being a play caller, he's been one of the top guys for years. And that's why he keeps getting head coaching opportunities, is because he does so good as a coordinator that people want to bring him on and see if he can bring that whole philosophy to a whole team. But let's go to the opposite side of the ball now, because the Browns, obviously, I had like a time of mourning last week with Nick Chubb, which was tough. Although we did get better news that it was only the MCL and not an ACL injury as well. So what I thought was maybe a career ender for a second there. Now it might just be a 6 to 8 month thing, and he might be ready to go week 1 next week, which blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. That's even in the realm of possibility. But with the way that dude works out, it would not surprise me. It's just tougher when you're on the little bit older side. You'd like that to be a 21, 22-year-old recovering from that, not a 27, 28-year-old. But getting away from Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson. Is Deshaun Watson I'm not going to say legit or not legit, because I don't know that either one of those things is fully true, but is he a good quarterback anymore? Or is he just meh?
I'll say he's good. He's not, I don't know if he was ever elite, but I'll say he was borderline elite. I'll say he's still good, although the pass the wrong way was very concerning and also incredibly hilarious. That basically I could not believe that, but it was so it's like, oh, he really did that.
To do that. High school quarterbacks know not to do that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Probably top 10 funny play this year, because that was just could not believe it happened. But you're just like, oh, that's not good. But I will say he's good. He's good enough to get them to the playoffs. Is he good enough to make it through the gauntlet that's going to be the AFC playoff bracket? I don't know. But he's good enough to at least get them there. He's good enough to keep them afloat for at least a wild card, possibly the division. It's going to really depend on Cincinnati, really. Yeah. He's good enough to do it. And I will say this, he does have some significant help, because if you have a fantasy football team and you do not have Amari Cooper, you need to trade for that man immediately. I've been super high on him since the season started. Get Amari Cooper on your team. That dude is going to have a great year.
Yeah, he's the number 1 target. I remember last year I put him as a top 12 receiver, and everybody's like, stop being a homer. And I'm like, guys, who else are they going to throw the football to? Like, he's going to get all the targets, and he is a legit top route runner in the NFL. And I think we get enamored with the size and the speed. And look at two of the best, arguably three of the best receivers so far in production this year. Amari Cooper has been fantastic. Keenan Allen, who ran a 4.7 and is 31 years old. Like, get out of here with that. That's crazy. And then Puka Nacua, who is not a great elite anything, but he's balling out. And so it's funny that we fall in love with the size and the speed. And at the end of the day, often it comes down to, can you do the little things well, and how are your ball skills? Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love having a dude like Tyreek Hill on my team because the dude is an ultimate speedster. But
He's
not
nuts.
everybody is as good as that. But when you're an elite route runner, you compensate for your lack of speed. You will be open. You will get the ball downfield. You will get the spacing you need. Like, I will take, unless I have someone like Hill who's just amazing at everything, I will take an elite route runner probably 9 times out of 10 over a speedster.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm with you. All right, let's move on to the Houston Texans. Is this a legit passing offense? We've got CJ Stroud, hasn't thrown a pick yet, over 900 yards passing, one of the top passing yardage numbers in the league. And they just beat who did they beat this week? Indianapolis.
They beat Jacksonville.
Sorry. They beat Jacksonville, which I don't think anybody saw coming. Jacksonville was supposed to run away with this division. They just beat Jacksonville, and they've been competitive in their other games. Is this passing offense legit?
First off, I think I was one of the only people who saw the upset in Jacksonville, because I think
I did not. Because
I worked in Houston for 2 years, so I got to follow the team and get to know everything about them. But one of the stats that stuck out to me when I was there is they had not beaten the Jaguars, the Jaguars had not beaten the Texans in Jacksonville, I think, since 2017. I have to double check what year that is, but it's been a while since Jacksonville won against Houston at home. So it's really weird. Kind of had a feeling it was going to happen. I'm honestly, you've known my stance on this. Quarterbacks that come out of Ohio State are busts, just automatic busts in my opinion, because they never get anybody good out of there. I might have been wrong about CJ Stroud. I might have been wrong. He looks really, really good. He's passing very well. He's got two very good, very underrated receivers. Nico Collins, another dude that you should get on your team immediately. Yep. And if you can make it, try and get Tank Dell as well. Those dudes are really good. I think the fact that they went ahead and drafted Tank Dell because CJ requested him specifically tells me how much they believe in him. And I think that belief is just growing. And on top of that, you have a guy like Nico Collins who played under the previous 2 disastrous head coaches. Now this dude wants to ball out. Now Brandon Cooks is in there, so he's the guy that's going to catch all the passes. I think it's a legit passing offense. And then on top of that, you have Dalton Schultz, who's a great safety blanket for someone like CJ Stroud. So just let the dude sling it. They have the game this weekend against Pittsburgh, and then they're at Atlanta, which that one will be a test because Atlanta's defense, like I mentioned, they actually look stingy, and Jesse Bates commands that defense. So that one will be a good test.
The Pittsburgh defense is legit as well.
I think, of course, with TJ Watt right there. So that'll be another good one too.
2 back-to-back tough one.
Yeah, is he going to panic in the face of just pressure from this oversized white dude that's going to absolutely kill you? So it's 2 really good. He actually has 3 tests in a row because right after that is the Saints. They have a stingy defense as well. But I think for now, just let the dude sling it. If the dudes are getting open, just let them go. They finally look like they're a competent team.
No, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right, let's move on to a guy that we debated a lot this offseason as to whether he was going to, or not even the offseason, but early on in the offseason, but even at the end of last year, like, what was the beginning of the year going to look like? Is it going to be Trey Lance's team, or is it going to be Brock Purdy's team? And obviously, they ended up moving on from Trey Lance, trading him to the Dallas Cowboys. And the 49ers are 3-0, and Brock Purdy overall is playing pretty well. Is Brock Purdy legit? Is he going to be their legit starting quarterback for the foreseeable future?
He will be legit as long as Kyle Shanahan is running that offense. Anyone
Fair.
else other than Mike McDaniel, he's not all that good. I think it's kind of, I'll be honest. I think Brock Purdy, and let me explain this a little bit because it's going to sound confusing. I think he's a little bit like Colin Kaepernick, where they had to have the right coaching staff in place. Notice how as soon as Harbaugh left the Niners, or he was fired, that Kaepernick completely fell off a cliff. But when he was there, he knew how to get in place. He knew what to give him. He knew to make him run, when to pass, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Kyle Shanahan is the same thing for that 49ers offense. Brock Purdy will be fine and will be the starter as long as Shanahan's there. If Shanahan leaves, unless somehow you get Mike McDaniel in there, Brock Purdy's going to fall off a cliff. And he's going to be the reason why he was Mr. Irrelevant. He got taken at the end of the 7th round for a reason. I hope Shanahan stays there because I like Purdy. I really do. But if he leaves, Purdy's going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair evaluation, because I don't think what Brock Purdy is doing is earth-shattering, but I think he's doing what is asked. And
he's being a game manager.
He is. He's a very good game manager, and they have some incredible weapons in San Francisco. I mean, every position you could talk about having an elite weapon there. At tight end, they got Kittle, they got Debo and Ayuk. They've got the number one back, especially with Nick Chubb out, Christian McCaffrey. They're loaded at every position. And if you can be consistent, and look, he's had some overthrows and he's had some misses and things like that, but more times than not, he's getting the ball where it needs to be at the time it needs to be there. And that's really all you need. I do worry/wonder if we get the next 2 seasons and it looks similar to the Jimmy G era, where they get close, but they don't win it all, if we're going to start to see this become cyclical. Because we had Jimmy G, who was a good game manager, got the ball where it needed to be, but couldn't make the big plays. And then they draft a guy that can make the big plays, but wasn't able to do the little accurate things that they needed him to do. So they go back to the game manager type that can do all the little things, but they don't have a lot invested in him. So in a couple of years, is it going to be tempting when there's a high-level quarterback there that they can maybe have an opportunity to get to kind of, but this guy can do more than Brock Purdy can, so let's draft him. I wonder if this becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because I think, let's say hypothetically San Francisco wins it all this year, they win the Super Bowl and everything. You're going to look at Brock Purdy the same way you look at Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson and be like, oh yeah, that dude won the Super Bowl. That dude was there. Yeah. So that's the way you're going to see him. And I think the way you bring that up is interesting, but I also think that also probably falls a little bit more on Shanahan, because, I don't want to bring this up, but I have to. So you go back to 2016, you have Matt Ryan, you're in the Super Bowl, but the play calling wasn't right. So you lose that one. And then you get to these NFC title games with San Francisco, and you have the guy who's right there with Jimmy G, but you can't get over the hump. Last year, we'll call it a wash because Brock Purdy gets hurt. There's nothing you can do about that.
Sure.
But at some point, it's got to be, can this coach get over the hump? Now, with Purdy, we'll see.
Andy Reid was at that spot for a while, too.
Yeah, correct. He was at that spot. Probably should have won a couple with McNabb, but he was 100% at that spot. But it's going to be interesting because, let's say Brock Purdy does just enough, but they don't get to the Super Bowl, or they get there and they lose. Well, Kirk Cousins is a free agent. He's right there. That dude can sling it all over the field. Can't run, but he can sling it. So that's something to look at. Do we replace this guy, Brock Purdy, who, like you said, we don't have a whole lot of invest. We invested a 7th-round pick in this dude. We're not paying him that much. Do we put him in the backup role and bring in Kirk Cousins and just let him throw the ball around the field? So
it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
The hard part is they've spent so much money on that defense and that defensive line and the weapons, and they paid Christian McCaffrey. And that's going to be the hard part, is can they make a contract with somebody like that?
Yeah.
Because that's where it could get tricky. But you're right. I mean, Kirk Cousins would be a dream fit for that offense. A dream. I mean, I can't imagine as good as the Chiefs are, as good as the Eagles are, as good as, even the Dolphins, who we were just talking about, like as good as these teams are, you put a top 10-ish quarterback in San Francisco, that's going to be tough to top.
Yeah, it's the reason why I put San Francisco back in the Super Bowl with my predictions. I don't see anybody that can really take them down. Maybe I'm still not sold on Philly just yet. I know Detroit's the sexy pick, and I had Detroit in the NFC title game. Maybe you get an upset there, but I think the absolute lock is San Francisco.
Yeah. Dallas was looking great, and then they looked really, really mortal this past week against the Arizona Cardinals. So let's ask about the Dallas Cowboys. Are the Dallas Cowboys legit or no?
No. I think to keep it short and simple, absolutely not. I like Dak Prescott. I want him to do good. He seems to regress every single year. I'm just not entirely sure what's going on right there. And I don't trust Mike McCarthy whatsoever. He's a coach that can get you to the playoffs, sure. Yeah, no, he's going to screw it up at some point. And we just mentioned San Francisco, not this week, but week 5, San Francisco, Dallas in San Fran, Sunday Night Football. So there's going to be the answer to your question, like, how good are they? Can they do it? Can they take down San Francisco in the playoffs? And my honest answer, no, they cannot. They can't do it. I mean, they played each other not this past year, but I think it was the year before in the wild card round when San Francisco is the wild card. And I had San Francisco winning that game because I don't trust Mike McCarthy whatsoever. Are they for real for the regular season? Maybe. They got some tough games coming up. I mean, Patriots have a stingy defense. That's your next opponent. Then, like I said, San Fran and Sunday Night Football. Then that defense gets tested by the Chargers in LA. And then after that, you have the Rams. So we got some tests coming up. But I'm going to say no. I don't like it. It's not for real. And Jerry's being Jerry. He's just going to do his own thing and get in his own way.
Yeah, it does. Man, they always seem to be right there. And then this defense goes out and just puts up a turd against the Cardinals. I mean,
yeah,
Josh Dobbs has been with this team a little over a month. Like, how?
I mean, he's been with that team for a month. You can't even get his jersey at the team store. I don't know if you saw that video that went viral.
Yeah, they finally got it like this Saturday.
Yeah, they finally got it in. But I mean, that's how new this dude is, and you lost to that guy. Like, that guy, you lost to a team that's actively trying to tank. Like, the
you
Cowboys
lost to a quarterback so bad, even Cleveland didn't want him. Like,
exactly. The Cowboys are just one of the great mysteries of life. We'll never know. We'll never know what's going on in Jerry's head. We'll just never know. But they won't win anything else until he's gone. I'll be honest about that. Until
really?
His son
takes that bad.
Over. Yeah, they won't win anything until Jerry's there. Jerry cannot get out of his own way. Too egotistical. He wants the Trey Lance move made no sense. Like, why are you giving up? I think they gave up a 4th round pick, which was too much. And on top of that, now you're going to add pressure to Prescott. Be like, oh, hey, well, we have Trey Lance and we want to see how he does. So don't suck. Why are you doing that? And for the record, if you saw Hard Knocks, that man puts too much salt in his McDonald's. Okay. So there's that as well. But Jerry cannot get out of his own way. And that's why they will never win anything until he's gone. Hopefully he's gone and still alive and not just pass. But knowing Jerry, he's probably going to pass in that ownership box.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Yeah, this is life. The Cowboys are life. All right, let's get one last one in here. Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that has been a Super Bowl contender the past couple of years, made it against the Rams, came up just short a couple of years ago. Joe Burrow just got this big contract. They've got the sexy young receivers. Everything's looking great. And then this year they start off 0-2. Burrow's calf injury doesn't look great. He guts it out in week 3. They look okay. but it was a hard-fought win against a Rams team that seems to be overperforming compared to where a lot of us had expected them
definitely.
to be. But still, it's the Rams. It's not like it's a great team. So is Cincinnati legit or no?
This one, I'm on the fence. So I keep reminding myself of last year because last year they started 0-2 as well. And they made it all the way, I think, to the AFC title game again.
Yep.
So they can turn it around, and they have a chance to do it right here. So they start 0-2. They just won on Monday night. The next games are both on the road, but it's at Tennessee and at Arizona. They can win both those games. Yeah, very winnable games. And even the one at home against Seattle after that, also a winnable game. They can get themselves back to 4-2, but it's really going to be that calf. I think that calf is just, that's the big piece right there. If it holds up, then they're legit. If not, then no, they're not. It all depends on Joe Burrow's leg. I'm super on the fence. I'm going to say, and it pains me to say that too, because I had them in the Super Bowl and winning it. So I'm going to say
I had the Jets, so we're good.
Oh, jeez. I had the Jets in the AFC title game, so yeah, we're good on that one.
Not our fault.
Not our fault. Blame the turf. I'm going to say slightly on the side of they're not legit, but peeking over the fence to the legit side.
Like
I think that's
the neighbor from Tim the Toolman.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The neighbor from
what's his name?
Home Improvement.
What was his name?
What was the neighbor's name?
Al?
It wasn't Jeff or something. I don't
know. He always said howdy neighbor. That's all
I remember him. He should have had a cowboy hat if he was saying howdy neighbor, but
I watched that show quite a bit growing up, and one time I went to I was probably 5 or so, and we went to Pizza Hut, which, by the way, back in the day in the 90s, Pizza Hut was like the most legit place ever. Loved going to Pizza Hut.
Wilson was his name. Thank you, Dennis.
Wilson, that's right, Wilson. And so I was like, I loved that show, watched it all the time. So I did a reverse Wilson where I looked under the stall and I was like, howdy, neighbor. And my dad was mortified and couldn't look me in the eye ever again. So
yeah, don't do that.
I was 5. It seemed right at the time.
Oh, jeez. Don't do that.
Oh, man. All right, Tyler. Well, thank you so much for coming in, joining us, talking about what's legit, what's not legit, NFL edition. Anything else that you want to touch on before we get you out of here?
I do have one specifically for you.
Okay.
Just because I'm very curious what your answer is.
All right.
Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, is that legit or is that not legit?
Oh, that's the most legit thing I've ever seen.
That's what I've been saying, dude. And the report came out earlier today that she's showing up to the Jets game. Oh, dude, it's legit. It's happening. It's real.
Look,
it's happening.
You don't go sit because she knew going in. This is national news. Everybody's kind of waiting to see. You don't go sit in the same suite as his mom if this is not legit.
Said. That is exactly what I said. And one thing I noticed, someone got a video of her as she was leaving the suite. She made sure to go back to where she was sitting, grab all her trash, throw it away.
Yes, I saw that.
If you are dating someone and you do that in front of the parents, that is a veteran move right there. Okay,
that is.
This thing is so legit that, in the words of MC Hammer, it's too legit to quit. Okay, this thing is
legit to quit.
100% real. Absolutely. And I'm 100% here for it.
I'm glad you say that because, look, a lot of my hardcore NFL brethren are like, I'm already over it. I'm already sick of this, blah, blah, blah. I'm not over this. This is great. Like, this is more eyes on our beloved sport. This is one of the most enjoyable characters in the NFL is Travis Kelce. Like, his brand has only grown over the past few years with the podcast and then him and his brother in the Super Bowl together and just all of it. It's legit. I'm listening for the rumors. I'm all about it.
On top of that, I hope it stays legit, because if Taylor Swift's involved in the league, that means a lot of single ladies are involved in the league, and your boy here is single. So I'm trying to work on something, trying to work on myself. Plus, if they get married, that album, oh, chef's kiss, dude. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be beautiful. But then if they get married, here's the ultimate question. If they get married, is she a Chiefs fan or is she a Philly fan?
Oh, you have to be a fan of the team that you married into. You have to be.
By that point, he's probably retired, right?
Yeah, but I think it's fine. Like, you're not dating his brother. So I think it's fine just being a KC fan. You can
But she's originally a Philly fan. I don't know if you knew that. She's originally a Philly fan.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, she's a Philly fan.
I'm gonna say you transfer over and you make yourself a fan of Kansas City. Yeah. You can still love and root for Philly, but if they ever play one-on-one, you're rooting for Kansas City. So like if it was this past Super Bowl, you're rooting for KC. And
especially if he's out there. But if he's not out there, it would be interesting.
Yeah, and before I go, I have to say this one thing. The one thing I love about this whole relationship, situationship, whatever you want to call it, the one thing I love about it is just all the Twitter interaction. And the best tweet I've seen, and I just have to say it on here, is that someone put on Twitter that the Swifties were going to break Chiefsaholic out of prison, and I need that in my life. I need that to happen 100%. It'd be the greatest thing ever.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Oh, man.
Tyler, thank you for joining me, my man.
No problem, man.
All right. Well, we'll head to break. When we come back, we will get to all of your questions. Fantasy football, trade, start, sit, whatever you got for me, I'm ready for it. So let's go ahead and go to break.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, and they let him be the quarterback for a long time too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there. Mm-hmm. And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl. And when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Here's the thing, too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
I would.
But Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
That they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman, and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, like, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky,
oh, no way!
is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yards go.
I love the break. He wasn't wrong. He was not incorrect. I did thoroughly enjoy that. That was pretty enjoyable. All right, so let's get to our trade questions, our start-sit questions, anything you got for me. So Banzera said, hey, guys, quick question. What do you think about trading thirds for injured players like Mike Williams if you're aiming to compete in 24? Look, I'm never going to have an issue trading a third-round pick for a player that I think could eventually help me. Now, Mike Williams is in a tough spot because, in theory, we're going to be seeing Quentin Johnston take over that role. So I don't know how long he's got to be an elite receiver. And I'm throwing around elite probably too loosely, a good receiver. I don't know how long he has to be a good receiver. So while there are other injured players I'd rather throw those thirds out and get, it's a third-round pick. And he could potentially be my third or fourth receiver next year on a team that's competing. So I'm never going to be upset trading a third. It's a third. As much as I love the draft and I love finding gems and diamonds in the rough and guys like that, is the hit rate on third-round picks is really low. So I'm totally fine trading a third-round pick at any point in time to get a player that I think is going to help me. All right, Stephen F. says, Stroud is available in my 1 QB league. Am I crazy for thinking about putting him up and putting T-Law on my bench or trade block? So I'm assuming this is a redraft league because neither one of the, like, Stroud's not available even in a 1 QB Dynasty league. Stroud's not going to be available. So I'm assuming this is redraft. I would say it's a little bit premature. Would I want to get Stroud on my team? Yes. But as we talked about before, he's got a couple tough games coming up. So I want to see how he does against some of these better defenses before I crown him and say, yes, he's going to be a legit starting quarterback in a 1 QB league in his rookie season. So I am at the point where I would kind of rather wait and see before I just jump ship and jump right into putting him on my squad. All right, start sit question. We've got Sedated Fork saying, sit one in full PPR, A-Chain, Mostert, or Jerome Ford. All right, let me see. Of course, I just got out of it too. Going to see who each team had this week as far as their matchup goes. Let's see. So we've got, for the Browns, we've got the Ravens. It's not the best run defense in the world. And then for Miami, we've got the Buffalo Bills this week, which is going to be a tough game. So at the end of the day, though, I don't fully trust Jerome Ford yet. I still think they're going to be throwing it around a little bit. I think Pierre Strong is going to be involved. And then this should be the first week that Kareem Hunt is involved as well. So I would probably start both Miami running backs. As crazy as that seems, I'm probably starting both Miami running backs ahead of Jerome Ford at this point. Now, if you need like a ceiling week and you're afraid to start both at the same time, I get it. But I would rather start both of those Miami running backs. Hi, Dan, 45 says, is it time to move on from Najee? This is an interesting one. I mentioned last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I do worry a little bit that, we're going to see Jerome Ford and we're going to see him more often. But at the end of the day, I still think this is Najee's backfield. I still think he's going to be the leader in touches in the backfield. And you see plenty of runs that he still got a lot of juice. he's played some pretty tough defenses. Remember, they've gone against the Browns, which has been one of the best defenses in football. Actually, it has been the best defense in football so far this year. Gone up against the 49ers. Like, they have not had an easy road so far this year. But he did put up 50 yards this past week, over 50 yards, because I remember betting that he hit the over, and he did. So he had a solid week this week. I think now is probably, if you want to move on from him, I think now is the wrong time to do it, because nationally people are talking about, oh, Najee's not the guy anymore and all this stuff. Whether you believe that's true or not, I don't believe that's true, but let's say you do believe that's true. I'm waiting a week or two for him to have a 2-touchdown game and then moving on from him. Or I'm waiting for him, everyone, even if they aren't getting the work they used to or whatever, they have big weeks. I would wait till then to move on from him. But right now, I just think this is the low point that we're going to have for him throughout the year. I think his value will rise a little bit. And even though Warren will be involved and is going to be a little bit annoying, and it's probably going to be kind of like what we saw out of Zeke and Pollard for 3 or 4 years there, early on, the Zeke Pollard, not the Zeke and Pollard from last year. So I still think even with the explosive plays, Zeke was the more valuable back. I think it's going to be the same type of thing here. Even with the explosive plays from Warren, I still think the more valuable back to have is going to be Najee Harris. All right. Charles is saying 12-team super flex. His quarterbacks are Kirk Cousins, Danny Dimes, and Justin Fields. Running backs, Gibbs, Spears, and Henry. Wide receiver, we've got Lamb, Olave, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, and then Laporta and Goddard at tight end. Do I move Fields for what I can get or hold and just start Jones and Kirk? This is a good question because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with Justin Fields. Similar to what I just said with Najee, I think this is the low point to sell Justin Fields. Remember last year, it took 4 games for this offense to get going. Do I worry about this team? Yeah. Do I worry about Justin Fields? Yes, I am worried. But not to a point where I want to just cut bait and sell for whatever I can get. Because I think, in fact, he's probably at a point where his value has dipped so low where I would rather actually buy, because when a quarterback hits in Superflex, I'm not saying he will or won't, because I have my concerns. But when a quarterback hits in Superflex, their value is ridiculous. Ridiculous. You can get almost any player you want outside of the tippy top tier once a quarterback hits. So if that's the case, I would rather just wait on Fields, hold him for now, and then if you're not a believer, which I can't blame you if you're not, he hasn't looked great. But if you're not a believer, wait for things to get a little bit better, because he is going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year. And he's a high draft pick that has shown at times to be a competent NFL player, where I don't see him not getting another opportunity. There's too many teams that need a quarterback for him to not get another opportunity. So I would rather hold at this point and wait for his value to climb a little bit, and then I would look to maybe make a move, trade him, something like that. Avazibo says, in IDP leagues, 3rd round is where it's at. Yes, that is very different in IDP leagues. I agree. Most of the time we aren't talking in the context of IDP, but I do agree that IDP leagues, 3rd round picks are very, very valuable because you're getting a lot of valuable pieces there. So let's take another quick break. When I get back, we'll get to all the rest of these questions. And then around 10:15, the man himself, Dennis Bennett, we're redrafting the 2023 rookie class. Be back in a moment.
Jake Ferguson, I think, is going to be one of the biggest frauds in fantasy, to be honest. I'm trading Jake Ferguson in Dynasty for anything right now. I'm trading him in redraft if somebody will take him. He scored the touchdown on a 1-yard play this week, but this guy, last week, he played 75% of the snaps, only ran 50% of the routes. This week, we were hoping that would change. He only ran 21 of 43. not even half again. So we were hoping it would improve from 50, worse than 50. So Jake Ferguson, not the guy we want. And you saw it. I mean, if you watch the game, they weren't locked in on anybody. They had Hayden Hendershot out there, got a goal line carry. Luke Schoonmaker, the rookie, scored a touchdown. Like, they are not committed to just one tight end. And if you have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks and Tony Pollard, if the tight end isn't playing every single snap, then he's not relevant. I mean, even if the one guy was playing every snap, you're not going to get a Dalton Schultz because there was no Brandon Cooks last year, and Michael Gallup was coming off an ACL. So the conditions changed, and now this guy's playing a partial snap share. Sell Jake Ferguson now. And people tell me, oh, Dak Prescott loves throwing the tight end. That's not even true. There was a guy on Reddit that just posted a study. His name is, like, I Call Cats or something like that. Great study, though, that showed that Dak Prescott doesn't target the tight end on an above average level. I mean, CeeDee Lamb got 156 targets last year. 156. And Michael Gallup and Noah Brown combined for 150. So, and the running backs combined for 85. So what is it? Does he love the tight end, but he also loves CeeDee Lamb, and he also loves the other wide receivers, and he also loves the running backs? Or just Kellen Moore just throw the ball a ton? That's what it was, right? So it's like this whole he loves the tight end situation, that's not even true, right? Or he just loves everybody. Maybe he does love the tight end, but clearly he loves CeeDee Lamb. No, like clearly he loves the running backs. So just don't worry about it. Forget about it. Trade Jake Ferguson for whatever you can get right now.
All right, welcome back. Oh, we already did it. All right, now welcome back. Dynasty Nerds, Better Sports Network. We're finishing up your questions. And then we're going to get to Dennis Bennett, the man himself. But I got to make sure I tell you guys, Fantasy Alarm. That's right, Fantasy Alarm, one of the best places to get your fantasy football information. They're all pro subscription. You can get a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's all pro subscription, absolutely free. So, little sample. See, like, hey, do I like this? I'm going to tell you probably are going to like it. It's pretty great. But do I like this? And try it for free. Oh, I like it, but I got 7 days for free. How great is that? Or, oh, I don't like it, and I didn't have to spend any money because I'm smart. That's what you can do. You can go to Fantasy Alarm, use their I don't even think you need a promo code. They make it so easy. Look at that. 7-day free trial, all pro subscription at fantasyalarm.com. That's fantasyalarm.com. All right. Let's head to Office Depot says Kyron Williams and Damian Pierce for Kenneth Walker offensive. I don't know what the offensive part is. But I want KW3 to pair with my Bijan. Look, I would do that trade in a second to get Kenneth Walker. Kyron Williams has played well. Damian Pierce has been okay. But I'm taking two pieces that are lower draft capital, that are a little more flash in the pan for a guy that, look, I know that Zach Charbonnet's been a little bit more involved, but Kenneth Walker is still the lead back there. He's been producing good numbers, and he's a high draft pick. As silly as it sounds, those guys tend to stick longer unless the other players are doing something phenomenal. And I don't think either player is doing anything phenomenal. So I would absolutely move both of those running backs to get a little bit of an upgrade and get myself some Kenneth Walker. Ooh, Stephen S. says, a question for your Talking Dynasty show. Yes, that's right. If you guys don't know, I do, obviously the Dynasty Nerds show, but myself and Jared Wackerly, we do have another show, and it's a little bit different than a lot of the shows. It's more about the theory on how we play the game, not necessarily what players to like, but how to think about how to like players. So it's a little bit different, a little bit outside the box. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. So if you haven't checked it out, Talking Dynasty on all the major podcast platforms. But he said a question for that show. Do you change your trade mentality when it comes to an Empire League? I just traded Addison and A-Chain for Adams, If I win this year, I take the Empire pot. So to catch people up on, traditionally, this is how Empire leagues work. So Stephen F., you can correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not how your league does it. But in traditional Empire leagues, how it will work is teams play normal Dynasty fantasy football. But once a team wins the ship, if they win the ship in a second consecutive year, so back-to-back years, if they win it, a few things happen. One, there is a pot that is built up, a side pot from the normal pot. So let's say you put in $75 to the main pot every year, but an additional $25 to the side pot. That side pot builds every year. And when you win your second one, not only do you win your normal winnings, but you also get that extra pot as well. So, if it's $2,000 sitting in there, then you get, that full money. But on top of it, it also resets the league. So whoever you had, you could have been tanking for the future and have 5 firsts and 24 and you're ready to go. And somebody wins back to back, that whole thing resets and it starts over and you redraft all over again. So that's traditionally how it works. So Steven, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You said that is exactly how our Empire works. So with that, it does change things a little bit for me. But I got to be really, really confident that I'm winning it this year. But if I am, yes, I would be willing to trade Addison and A-Chain for Devontae Adams. But I need to be really, really confident because I think A-Chain's legit. A-Chan. I need to make sure I get in the habit of saying A-Chan and not A-Chain. I think A-Chan is legit. And Addison looks really good too. So long term, you're absolutely going to want both of those pieces. But if you think you can win it, Devontae Adams, it looks like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, where he's playing. He's going to put up numbers. He looked fantastic this past week. So I would be willing to do that to put me over the top. All right, Sedated Fork said, okay, just got a trade offer in a 1 QB Dynasty League. 2 24 firsts, mid and late, and Dulcich for Achan and Gesicki. Oh, man. I still got to take the first side. As much as I think Achan is good, that mid first is the thing that puts it over the top. If they were both late, if you thought, man, these are going to be picks 11 and 12, I might be willing to do it. But, and the hard part is I like Dulcich more than Gesicki as well, even though I'm not sure what his role is going to be coming back from this injury. So it is a little bit of a question mark, but we know Gesicki's role isn't much. That's a tough one because I do believe in him, but I'm going to go with the first side. Hydan says, what do you think it will take to get JT? A first and a player? Second and a player? I think it's definitely taking first and a player. I think you're looking around the 2 mid-first range because I think most people remember how good he was a couple years ago. They don't forget that he was an RB1 overall. They don't forget the type of things that he can do. And more teams are desperate for running back now than they were a few weeks ago before we had injuries to Nick Chubb and Dobbins, and we had Barkley and Eckler missing due to injury and Aaron Jones out. Like, people are a little desperate for running back right now. It's going to take every bit of a first and a player, and it's probably going to be a pretty good player. His value is probably going to be still around 2-ish first round picks, and more so the mid side probably than the late. Sedated Fork, we'll ask Dennis that when he comes back. Favorite vinyl album? It's a good question. All right, Michael says, I'm in a 3-flex league, and I'm trying to decide who to start. My options are Derrick Henry, Zach Moss, Jerry Jeudy, Brian Robinson, Romeo Doubs, and James Conner. How many do you get to start, Michael? Because that does change things quite a bit. So how many spots do you get? So the one that I think I feel pretty solid about at this point is I do feel pretty solid about Derrick Henry. It's crazy that we've gotten to that point where we're not sure about him, and I understand why. But the Bengals rush defense hasn't been great. I think he's going to feast. So he's a absolute still you start him. James Conner has played really well, but I do worry about them playing the 49ers. So I'm probably avoiding him. Romeo Doubs has played great, but you have the worry of Christian Watson coming back. What's his target share look like? Zach Moss has been quite the surprise. The Rams have a decent defense, nothing exceptional, but at the end of the day, you do have Aaron Donald in the middle of that defense. So he can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm absolutely starting Jerry Jeudy this week. I think this is the get-right week. They're playing the Bears. Anytime you play the Bears, it's a get-right week. So I think you absolutely play Jerry Jeudy, and I think you absolutely play Derrick Henry. The last spot is a bit up in the air for me. I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky. I'm not playing Brian Robinson. That Eagles front is legit. And I don't want to play James Conner. So it really comes down to Dobbs or Moss, but I think I'm going to go Moss. He's been consistent enough, and it's not an elite defense at this point. So I think the top three guys you have there, Derrick Henry first, Jerry Jeudy second, and then Zach Moss would be the third spot for me. Stephen F. said, one thing we add to our empire, adds if defending champ can't trade future picks. Oh, that's interesting. So they can't like build up and to help them win. So that's interesting. Stephen F. says, pretty confident. He said super flex, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 2 flex spots, tight end premium. Running backs are CMC, Bijan, Aaron Jones. Wide receivers, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Olave, AJ Brown, Mike Evans. Also got Purdy, Burrow, Laporta, and Njoku. Yeah, it's a pretty legit squad. I would want to maybe try to get a third quarterback just in case. Try to get him now before, in case one of those guys gets hurt, or Joe Burrow specifically. So you have that insurance policy in case one of those guys goes down. Michael's saying he's thinking Jerry, Henry, and Connor. Oh, so you do have a third quarterback in Carr. Okay, good. All right, guys. Well, let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, Dennis Bennett at Culture Coach on Twitter. We're going to be talking with him, and we're going to be redrafting the 2023 class.
I like to eat my feelings. So when I'm like super sad, single serving pint sizes of Ben and Jerry's, I just start shoveling that in, and it makes me feel bigger and better. But so let's eat our feelings here. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk football players, food. We're gonna pair them up. Who is represented by what food? All right. I want to just shout out Hal Alexander in there for CMC. Christian McCaffrey is Rocky Road ice cream. A little bit of everything.
Yeah,
does it?
Good Hal.
I like it, man. You know it. I love me some Rocky Road ice cream. Bijan Robinson prime rib. You know what? Bijan Robinson prime rib with a baked potato and some cream spinach on the side. That's what I'm talking about. That is the King's dinner. And Bijan Robinson, I don't care if the dude from The Athletic says only 301, touches. You know what? In honor of Card Sharks, I'm going to say, guys, that I think that number is going to be a little bit higher there for Bijan Robinson. So get your knife, get your fork, you got your steak, you got your Bijan.
Yeah, that's what's up. You're on death row, and they say you get one last meal, and you just say Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. Love it.
I got to jump in on one real quick because Mr. Scamper said Kareem Hunt is candy corn, and I actually had a player, Tyler Boyd, was going to be candy corn for me, and basically it's that nobody likes it, but it's always there. It's always there, and somebody always puts their hand in and grabs some and has some, and they're like, well, and afterwards they're like, why did I eat that? That's Tyler Boyd. He always gets drafted, and he's just kind of there, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why they take him. Nobody knows where it comes from. Where does the candy corn even come from? Like, it's just there. It's just there.
All back. Dynasty Nerds, Better Sports Network. Man, I love drafting. This time of year, I don't get to draft very much. So, Dennis, you all right with drafting tonight?
Dude, when you said we were going to draft, I was like, man, I can't wait. Some of the players that have popped off, it's like, how much is it going to shake up the draft? That's what I want to see. How much is it going to shake it up?
I mean, we've had a player or two at each position that have really just elevated their game, and they've had some big weeks. So I'm really interested to see how this shakes out. So we don't have like a fancy board or anything like that, and we're only going 2 rounds. So we'll recap it as we go. Talk about Tyler, if you're able to on the back end, just in a Google sheet or something, track it. If not, no big deal. I'll make sure to kind of keep some notes here as I'm drafting and just, recap the first round, the second round. The plan is to do 2 rounds. Now, it's always tough with.
Is that your subtle way of telling me to not talk too much?
No. This is I know how this goes, and it could honestly go either way. We could get so excited about drafting players that, we blow our load and we're done in, 20 minutes and we got to go to a 3rd round. Or as you mentioned, we tend to talk about players we like very, what's the right way to say it? Extensively. And so it could take a little long, and all of a sudden, we have 5 minutes left to get the last 6 picks done. So either one of those things could happen. We'll see how it goes. Dennis, I thought I would be a gentleman. Now, to remind everyone, this is Superflex tight end. Look at Tyler. What a man. He's the man. Superflex tight end premium. So the first overall pick in the draft, Dennis, if we are redrafting the 23 class today, who's the number 1 pick in a Superflex tight end premium league?
So it's real easy to get high on HN and say, man, I love what I saw this week. I'm all hopped up, but it's still Bijan Robinson. It's about the talent. He's getting the opportunity. He's going to be just fine. I get it. Arthur Smith's, trying to prove to the fantasy players that he's not playing for us. But you know what? We like players that are good and score points. Arthur Smith should like players that are good and score points too. It's not rocket science.
No, it's not. And Jaws, you're absolutely right. Safe to say Puka will elevate beyond the 3rd round. Yes, I don't think he will fall to the 3rd round in this draft. All right, so chalk with the number 1 pick, and I'm going to go chalk with the number 2 pick too here as well. I'm not changing from where we were originally. The guys looked good enough in a week and a half of the 3 weeks. But Anthony Richardson looks like the quarterback that we've been waiting for. Really good athlete. He's gotten it done with both his arm and his legs. They're winning games. They're 2-1 right now. And the pace that he was on was a legit top-end fantasy football quarterback. Like a legit top-end fantasy football quarterback. So it's really tough to take anybody above him in a super flex league, because once you get guys in that top tier, you want Bijan Robinson, you can get Bijan Robinson for a guy in the top tier super flex leagues. Anybody in a super flex league will gladly trade away Bijan Robinson to get Patrick Mahomes, to get Jalen Hurts, to get, those types of players gladly. So as much as I love some of the other players at other positions, Anthony Richardson's shown too much at a position that's too valuable. So Anthony Richardson is still the 2nd guy off the board for me there. Dennis, would you have done the same?
Yep. When I reshuffled my deck, that's exactly how it came out.
Okay. All right. So now we're on to pick 3. Here's where things could get interesting. Most of the time, not always, depends on whose draft you're in, but the consensus pick here was Bryce Young. Is Bryce Young the 3rd pick for you now, 3 weeks into it?
He's not. And So I struggled with separating my fandom from my analysis a little bit because I'm a huge CJ Stroud fan, and I wasn't a big Bryce Young fan. I don't like small quarterbacks, and they're kind of like tight ends to me. Get in the league, let me see you hold up, let me see you perform. So I was more of a Stroud guy, and Stroud is the pick for me here at 103. I think he's showing a lot of moxie. The high level metrics, completion percentage and stuff, getting the ball out quick, things like that are looking good. There are a lot of metrics that are very middling, and it's because he's a rookie. He's got a lot to learn, but he's playing tough. The team trusts him. I think he's looking good. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that gives you 400, 500 yards on the ground. I don't think it's that he can't. I just think he's not going to. So, but give me 40, 45 pass attempts per game. Let that O-line get healthy. Give him time. I think he picks the defenses apart. I think we got a 40 touchdown seasons in the future here.
Yeah, he's looked fantastic these first couple weeks. Tyler and I, Heavy T, we were talking about him earlier on, and it looks legit. And the receiving weapons, although these were not big name guys, he's not getting to throw to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. He's not getting to throw to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But Nico Collins and Tank Dell are getting it done. They look good in this offense. They're all playing well together. And a rookie that's on this kind of team, and it's a defensive-minded head coach. Traditionally, those guys are ground and pound, and they're trying to run the game clock down so that way their defense, nope. This team is throwing the football and doing it successfully. So this is what my board looked like before the season started. Where you based on what you were saying, I'm assuming you were taking Stroud ahead of Bryce Young preseason as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nothing's changed here for us. ADP wise, Bryce Young was the third player off the board. Stroud was the fourth. So we're still not going too far off base here. But I'm not taking Bryce Young with the fourth pick. I know in Superflex it tends to be that way, and maybe that's the right move, but I'm not loving what I'm seeing earlier on. And I think that there's some guys, positions that I would rather have. To be honest, this is a tough selection, but I'm still going with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, yes, maybe he hasn't put up that big game that we would have wanted to see, but plenty of rookies don't get it done in their first 3 games. Jonathan Taylor, we didn't see anything until the second half of the season, his rookie year. There's plenty of guys that we struggle with. I still think that he's a very talented back. Will he ever get the workload that we really want him to? I don't know. I don't know that he will. Maybe, but I don't know. But either way, I know that he's going to be a consistently good back. I'm hoping he can be a great back. I don't know if he will, but I feel confident at this point that he will at least be a consistently good back. And that I can't miss. I can't miss at the fourth pick. And so I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs. I know you're a Lions fan. Would this have been your pick as well, Dennis, or no?
It would have been my pick. It wasn't where I had him preseason. I had him one spot lower. I did have Bryce Young up at 4 because he's a quarterback and it's super flex, and he's got a great college production profile. I just I wasn't in love with him. It was one of those things where if I was at the 104, I was looking to trade because I didn't want to take Bryce Young. I wanted to drop down a couple spots for players I feel better about.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Dennis, then you're on the clock here at pick 5, and I feel like this is the first, at least for me, this is the first tough selection. All the other ones lined up pretty nicely, and this is the same order I would have had. So we're pretty much in lockstep here. But I could see 4 or 5 different routes you would go here. So I'm curious to see who you take with this pick.
So I'm going to stick with the one season wonder talent profile, I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's going to succeed Tyler Lockett, slide right into that role, be very productive. I think by the end of the season, he starts to produce. I'm going Jackson Smith and Jigba at 5. It's just I'm betting on the talent, and I know we haven't seen a ton of him yet, and Seattle hasn't looked great other than their victory over Detroit, but I wanna bet on the talent, and JSN's my guy.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. I think that it's what I would have done preseason, and it's probably what I would have done here as well. I still believe in him as a player. Yes, we haven't got the huge game from him yet, but it's really, really early, really, really early in the process still. So far, our board looks pretty similar to preseason, with the exception of one guy, Bryce Young. The right move is to take Bryce Young here at pick 6. But screw that. I'm taking Devon Achane. Look, this kid looked too freaking good this past week. That offense is built for speed. And granted, I had him. I was already taking him in the first round preseason. He was coming off the board right around 8-9 for me preseason. So this isn't even moving him up that far for me. Now, I know that he was dropping to the second round for other people. And our ADP that we have here, he was going right around pick 12. So that is a pretty steep jump to go from pick 12 to pick 6 after only 3 weeks. But, man, he played incredible. All of the scouting, all of the notes that I had on him preseason absolutely lined up with what I saw on the field. This was exactly what I envisioned it could be in a perfect world, and it literally has gone to that perfect world scenario.
Yeah, I don't think I could have taken him that high. I get why you do, and
you hate small people. That's what I'm learning.
I do, and I'm not bashful about it. Now, I will say, watching how they've been performing this year, I certainly have to rethink that stance. They, by and large, the little people have looked great. The mighty might have been producing, and when evidence presents itself, you have to be willing to admit your wrongs and alter the course and move forward. I get it. I don't know that I could take Achane at 6 though. And that's what I call him, because vowel, consonant, vowel, the first vowel is a long vowel. So Achane. So that or drop the E at the end of your name, dude. You learn that in the 2nd grade, okay? That being said, at 107, I'm gonna go Bryce Young. The fall has lasted long enough. I do think there's talent there. But I think he's gonna fall into that, Derek Carr mid QB2 range with the occasional high QB2 season. It's got to get clicking. You can't have Andy Dalton come in and put up the numbers he did. Young was putting up 4.21 yards per attempt. I think that was 33 out of 34 33rd out of 34 quarterbacks with I think 40 dropbacks is where that was, and that's, you got to get the ball downfield. I get it, but maybe he felt pressure or something. But you got Mingo. I know Chark's been out. Adam Thielen's there, and I know he's slow, but Thielen can still get down the field further than 4.2 yards. That's all I'm saying. But Young's fall stops here at 107.
It's the right move. And it maybe even should have happened to pick sooner, but I don't know. I just don't believe in the guy. But it's the right move to take him here at 7. At pick 8, man, I have a few different guys I really want to take here. But I thought about playing having a little gamesmanship, knowing that you hate taking tight ends despite this being a tight end premium league. or tight end premium draft, but I'm still going to go with what I think I would probably do. And he was tight end 2 pre-draft, but man, he's playing like tight end 1 right now. I'm going to take Sam Laporta here. Sam Laporta has played. Is that who you're going to take?
That's who I was going to take.
See, I thought for sure those guys were going to fall to the second round for you just because you hate taking tight ends.
You know, they traded away a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic version of Sam Laporta to draft Sam Laporta. I don't get the philosophy, but Laporta's producing. He looks great. Tight end 2 on the season. I don't think there's any real threat to his position. And unlike Hawkinson, they seem to be consistently using him. I don't know why they didn't with Hawkinson. I don't know who he winked at that ticked somebody off, but Laporta's doing the right stuff.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big jump for him. So according to our ADP, he was actually tight end 3, but he was still going towards the end of the second round early on in the process. Now I know he moved up closer we got to the season, but this is a pretty big jump for him. So Dennis, where are you going at 9?
So at 9, now I'm dipping back into the little receivers, and I'm weighing 2 different philosophies. You've got Zay Flowers, who seems to be the one in Baltimore in a low volume passing offense, or Jordan Addison, who's the 2 in Minnesota. Most weeks he's the 2. KJ Osborne seems to still be a fantasy zombie. But Addison is the 2 in Minnesota, with Kirk Cousins essentially on his way out the door. So there's some uncertainty there. I still think I'm going to go Addison over Zay Flowers, in part because I feel like the coaching philosophy in Minnesota is leaning heavily towards passing. It's the McVay tree. They're going to pass. And so I'm going to take Addison at the 109.
That works out for me because I'm going to take Zay Flowers then at pick 10. He was my number 2 receiver in the process. He's still my number 2 receiver in this process. He's played really well. Yes, I get it that it's some lower ADOT stuff, and we'd like to see the ball down the field a little bit more. But if you're going to give my guy 10, 11 targets a game, I don't care if it's the line of scrimmage every time, because I know regardless of the yards he gets, I have an 8-point baseline each and every week to start with. And then hopefully he gets me 40, 50, 60 yards, maybe a touchdown on top of it. But when you're starting with that type of target volume right off the bat, that's looking pretty good. So, Tyler, we will do 12 picks in the first round if you're cool with that. So we'll do 2 12 pick rounds for all of this. So, Tyler, appreciate you, man. All right. Let's go back to you, Dennis.
Here's where it gets dicey because there's a couple guys who really have popped off in Nakua and Dell, who it feels like should be at least at the end of the first round. And then there's the athletic profile of Quentin Johnston, who's now, 3 weeks from now, we could be sitting here saying, wow, can you believe what Quentin Johnston has done? Dalton Kincaid is still out there. A really nice profile. Tyjae Spears. So there's a lot of talent here. I think I'm gonna stick with Quentin Johnston. I think they have they can get out of Mike Williams' contract for like $12 million next year, and if Johnston plays well the rest of this season, I really think being paired up with Justin Herbert makes for a nice start to your career. So I'm gonna still go Quentin Johnston here.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I wouldn't have necessarily made it, but if you were somebody that believed in Quentin Johnston, this is the right range for him. I've just never believed in him as a player. I didn't love his tape. He kind of reminded me of, some of the concerns that I had about Treylon Burks. I had about Quentin Johnston as well. Just not great ball skills, more just a really good athletic profile type player. I like guys that can do a little bit more as far as route running and ball skills and things like that. So
That's what we said about DK Metcalf.
that's true, but that's also what we've said about a lot of guys that I would rather give me the Keenan Allens of the world, give me the those types of guys, Amari Coopers, the guys that are savvy, smart with ball skills, Cooper Kupp, those kind of guys personally. All right. The only thing that made this hard, Dennis, is that's somebody that I wasn't going to pick. So now a lot of the guys that I was going to pick are still on the board. So it didn't help me make my decision. I got to go with my boy. I can't let Tyjae Spears fall out of the first round. It's against everything that I believe in. He's so good. He's so good. Rough week this week for the Tennessee offense against what's been the best defense in football so far this year. But in the two previous games, he's looked really good. Mike Vrabel talking about if we can ever block for this guy, he's going to be ripping off 30, 40, 50-yard runs. So they liked what they saw. He was the top running back through the first 2 weeks, third in pass protection. I'm sure that's dropped after this week's game, but still believe in the player. I think he's just primed for a breakout as we see Derrick Henry trending the opposite direction. So I got to make sure that Tyjae Spears stays in the first round.
Man, I can't believe you didn't go Dalton Kincaid there.
I thought about it. I really did. I have 3 or 4 guys that I want to take, but it's just showing this class is looking better than I think we maybe originally thought it would.
Yeah, I'm sitting in that same situation. Honestly, I think I'm going to go Tank Dell here. He's paired up with a quarterback that wanted him. He's producing up and down the field. Another small receiver that I went into the season with all right, you're going to have to show me something. And he's showing me. He's doing things that I just didn't think were, he'd be able to accomplish it. 5'8", 165. And he's going out there and doing it. So Tank Dell's the 201 for me.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. Tank Dell, he's played really well. I'm surprised to see you take a small receiver here. I thought for sure that you would figure out anyone else to draft.
It was tough to not take Puka, but
sure.
We got Stafford on the verge of retirement, Cooper Kupp coming back, and Puka. I know he's a 5th round pick. I'm just not sure. What's the system? Is it the system? He stepped right in there and played the Cooper Kupp role. Will that continue? Is McVay, 6 games away from the broadcast booth? A lot of questions there.
It'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out, but I'm gonna give you another opportunity to take Puka. As much as I'm kind of surprised he didn't go in the first round, I thought for sure he was going to go in the first round. In a tight end premium, I gotta take Dalton Kincaid. Like, he's another guy that probably shouldn't fall out of the first round in a tight end premium redraft here. And I think the only reason he's fallen a little bit is simply because Laporta's looked so good. I don't think Kincaid's looked bad at all. I think he's looked pretty solid. He just hasn't overwhelmed to the level that Laporta has. But Kincaid's done what we've asked of him so far. Will we want to see a little more moving forward? Sure. But he's been really solid. Everything on tape has shown up. They're looking for him. They're getting him involved. So I would be thrilled to get him at pick 14 overall in a redraft in a tight end premium league.
Yeah, I like Kincaid a lot there, and honestly, if I could have gotten him in some drafts more in the early second round, I'd have probably been a little more amenable to drafting him. Drafting him at the 107, 108, 109 just wasn't in the cards for me.
Yeah.
That being said, I am going to go Puka Nacua at the 203. I think you got to. He's showing some versatility, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when Cooper Kupp is back, because Van Jefferson has crapped the bed this year. And Tutu Atwell has just shown out. Another mighty might out there just doing all kinds of things. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Tutu has been doing the last 3 years, but he's ready to play this year, and he looks great. So
yeah, he's been balling out. 15 or more PPR points in each game through the first 3 weeks. You get that out of Stephon Diggs, you're thrilled, but you're getting it out of Tutu Atwell. So very happy with that production. All right, so this is a tough range because now I'm really weighing guys that I liked pre-draft a little bit more with what I've seen out of some guys post-draft that have convinced me a little bit. I'm going to go with Marvin Mims. Wide receiver, Denver Broncos. They took him in the second round, which is a little bit earlier than I thought he was going to go. I thought he was more of a third round type of player. So they took him in the second. When he's gotten the ball, he's made big things happen. The biggest problem has been they just haven't gotten the ball a lot through the first 3 weeks, but only out there on about 0.25% of their snaps. But, man, he's made big play after big play after big play every time he's touched the ball. So lots to like there. The Denver Broncos overall have been a mess, but this could be a coming out party this week for Marvin Mims against that Bears defense. So we'll have to see how things go. But I think as much as there were some other guys there I was very tempted by, I like Marvin Mims in that spot.
Yeah, it's feeling a little bit like Sean Payton is doing his best Mike Holmgren in Cleveland impression.
The second go round not looking nearly as good.
I'm not accusing him overtly of mailing it in, but it hasn't looked great. No. Russ today came out and said that Marvin Mims has no ceiling. And I think that's Russ's way of saying, hey, coach, you want to squawk at me in the press? Well, let me tell you something. You need to give this guy more than 20% of the snaps.
That's wild.
So, well, now we're kind of in that middle second round where there's some like journeyman type running backs available. A couple wide receivers that you may want to take a shot on. I think I'm going to go Zach Charbonnet. We liked his profile a lot. He was like a late first round pick, early second round pick going into the season. I think we expected a little bit more out of him. And I don't know if it's him just not quite performing up to snuff, if it's Kenneth Walker just going in there and kicking the snot out of everybody and saying, this is my job and you'll take it over my dead body, or if it's just Pete Carroll going, Zach who? But I think I'm going to take Charbonnet. He's a good pass catcher, big back, moves well. He's my 205.
All right, yeah. No, I think that's a good pick. His snap share has increased the past couple weeks. So we saw him get up to I want to say it was roughly like 40%, 41% this week. So he has improved a little bit. Sedated Fork asked if we saw him truck that defender. Yes, I did see that. He ran right through that guy, which was pretty sweet to see. Bunzera saying Chase Brown. I've never been a big Chase Brown guy, so I don't think he's going to end up going, at least in my set of picks, in the first 2 rounds here. I don't know. What about you, Dennis? Is he going to go in your no?
Nah.
No. All right.
Not unless I receive a check here pretty soon.
Oh, man. Let's go with – I'm going to go with Jonathan Mingo here. Hasn't done as much as we would have wanted, but the wide receiver from Carolina just hasn't had – it's tough. When your quarterback is underperforming and your offensive line isn't great, you don't have those opportunities to get downfield. You're trying to learn. You're trying to figure things out. It's kind of messy there right now. Adam Thielen's just taking all the targets, it seems like. Every time they throw the ball at Adam Thielen. So he just hasn't had a ton of work, but there were some encouraging signs this week, was getting a little bit more involved. I still like the profile of the player and the potential that he has, but this one, I'm similar to his college career. I'm basing it more on what could be more so than what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's a big wide receiver. That kind of fits my mojo. He was still a couple players down my board, so he wouldn't have been up for my next pick. I'm picking between two players right now. One is a guy that had some buzz early on in draft season, but he's a small wide receiver, didn't land in a great spot, but has been playing and he's been earning targets. The other is a running back that seems to be increasing his role a little more each week, but he's just in he's in a quagmire of a situation right now. So it's between Josh Downs and Roschon Johnson. Downs has been earning targets like crazy. I really thought Alec Pierce would take a big step this year, but he hasn't. Pittman's doing Pittman things. But Josh Downs is earning targets. I like him a lot. Roschon Johnson seems to be stepping up. Roschon is RB24 on the season right now. So he's starting to, they've pushed Deontay Foreman down, and it's really between Herbert and Roschon. And Roschon's getting the passing work. But I think because I want to get something with a little more ceiling opportunity, and I think you get the ceiling and the longevity more from the wide receiver, I'm going to go ahead and take Josh Downs here.
Yeah, I can't blame you. He's a really, really efficient route runner. He has produced better early on in the season than I would have expected him to originally. So he has been getting a decent amount of targets, doing a little bit with the targets, and I mean a little bit. Like, it's not like he's made any big plays, but he's doing the things that he needs to do, and he's always going to be a possession guy. And look, I get it because it's tough to compare him because he's not white, but he's like Hunter Renfrow. He's a lot like Hunter Renfrow, but he's not going to do a ton after the catch. He's not going to run guys over. He's a very similar to, those traditional small slot receivers that we see, but solid player. That does leave Roschon for me, though, and I'll gladly take him. I know he was a guy that you and I were kind of talking about a lot early on in the season. How is this all going to work between Herbert and Foreman and Roschon? And I know you're a big Herbert guy. Foreman's been kind of phased out of this equation, so it is down to these two guys. Roschon has been picking things up quite a bit. Just out of curiosity, have things changed for you? I am going to take Roschon, but have things changed for you? Do you still see Herbert as the guy, or do you think it is going to be more of an even split, or eventually even Roschon taking over?
I think it's going to be more of a split with a lean towards Herbert for most of the season. Where Roschon is picked up is, they started out with a three-headed monster, and Roschon has pretty much absorbed everything Foreman was getting. It'll be a little trickier now because Fields has basically said, look, I'm going to run more, and if you don't want me to run, you're going to have to bench me. So he's going to start getting a bunch of carries. Roschon is going to get the passing down work. Herbert's, he's kind of like Ken Walker in that regard. He isn't out there running a lot of sophisticated routes. He can catch the ball competently, but that's about it. Roschon is going to be getting that portion. So for me, coming up next, let's see. Now we're in that. It's like I've got two picks left. Rashee Rice has kind of popped a little bit. Jaden Reed has popped a little bit. Michael Wilson had a 69-yarder last week. Arizona has probably been the most surprising team of the year. I expected they'd be 0-3 and getting beat down like Denver did last week. But they're, it's wild because if you remember when Nick Sirianni went to Philadelphia, it was all this talk about the crazy press conferences and crazy introductions. And then you start seeing all this video about Jonathan Gannon and these crazy press conferences and introductions. It's like the players just love those guys and go play hard for them. It's like, who'd have thought that, it's like Belichick, given the way he is with the press, with the whole monotone thing. I bet he's a laugh riot in the locker room. That being said, I am going to go ahead and take Rashee Rice here. As much as I felt like it was the year Sky Moore was going to step up after being in that offense, Rice is earning targets. I know we've still got lots of Travis Kelce going on, but Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere for a good long time. And Rice just seems to be each week getting more and more trust from Patrick Mahomes. And he's just taking it away from Sky Moore. I felt like it was going to be the other way around and that Rice would really earn targets next year. He's doing it this year. I'm going to take Rashee Rice at the 209.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. It has thinned out a little bit. I didn't do the gamesmanship earlier. I tried to do the right thing, but I did play a little bit of gamesmanship here, knowing that you probably weren't going to take Luke Musgrave. So I was able to get him here at pick 10. I was considering him back in the Jonathan Mingo pick, but I get him here. He's looked really good so far in Green Bay. He's done really well with Jordan Love. I don't know, is this fully legit in Green Bay yet? I'm not 100% convinced. But man, they have looked pretty good, and Jordan Love has looked pretty efficient. And we've seen Luke Musgrave be a big part of that pretty early on in his rookie campaign. So I like what I see out of him. Like I said, I'm not fully convinced like I am with Laporta and Kincaid, but he is a second-round pick. He has produced, and I don't know. I like the kid, so I'm buying into it a little bit. Were you going to take him soon or no?
I was going to take him at 209.
Okay.
That's why I didn't mention him. I thought I was playing a little gamesmanship.
There you go.
I could get him just to see if you're like, Dennis ain't going to take him, so I can take him at the 212. No, I like Musgrave. As you know, all of those first and second year wide receivers with the first year quarterback in Love, that team has an opportunity to really put something together and grow. They do need to have an infusion of talent on the offensive line, and Love has to get that completion percentage up. He can't keep completing 54% of his passes. He's got to get, add 8 or 10 points of that. And I think he will. But yeah, Musgrave looked great. I was all about it and was just trying to play it one more pick. So with my last pick at the 211, it's a choice between a smaller wide receiver that's producing a little bit and a bigger wide receiver that isn't producing a lot yet but popped off. I think I'm going to go with Michael Wilson because I feel like he's the one that has the opportunity to become the alpha receiver. I don't see Jaden Reed becoming an alpha receiver, so I'm going to go with Michael Wilson.
Yeah, I like Michael Wilson quite a bit. He was a guy that I frequently took late third, early fourth round of a lot of drafts. And this could look even better once Kyler Murray's back because it does look like they're at the point that they're not going to be tanking for Caleb Williams. It doesn't look like they're going to be – I mean, they almost beat the Washington Commanders, almost beat the Giants, should have beaten the Giants. They were up, 28-0 at half? Like, they were crushing the Giants. And then they did beat arguably the hardest team of the three that they played there in the Dallas Cowboys. So they're a legit team. Legit in the sense of they're not going to be in this tank for Caleb Williams race more than likely. So I do think we're going to be getting him as one of the top weapons for Kyler Murray very soon. So I like the pick. That was going to be my pick if he fell one more spot. as much as Jaden Reed has produced, and I do like him, and if we had more picks, he would be going very soon for me. I'm going to go with Cedric Tillman. And this is more of a long game more than a short term because I know he's not going to do a ton this year. It's going to be the Amari Cooper show. And if it's not him, it's going to Njoku or it's going to Elijah Moore. There's Donovan Peoples-Jones, but Peoples-Jones contract's up. I don't know what they're going to do with Amari Cooper's contract after this year. And there's a world where it's basically him and Cedric Tillman long-term as the main options for Deshaun Watson. And Cedric Tillman looked really, really good in preseason. And I do think that he's somebody that, given enough time, he's going to be maybe not a wide receiver one in the NFL, but a really, really talented fantasy football wide receiver two that could have some big games, especially the size, the physicality. There could be a lot of touchdowns, red zone opportunities in his future. So I am going to take Cedric Tillman, even though we have seen a little bit more out of Jaden Reed. So recap, you guys can see it there. Bijan Robinson, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devon Achane, Bryce Young, Sam Laporta, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Tyjae Spears to round out the first round. Second round, Tank Dell, Dalton Kincaid, Puka Nacua, Marvin Mims, Zach Charbonnet, Jonathan Mingo, Josh Downs, Roshan Johnson, Rashi Rice, Luke Musgrave, Michael Wilson, and Cedric Tillman. So a couple of the guys that were originally first or second round picks that no longer made the cut. We have in the first round Will Levis. Early in the second round at pick 14, we have Kendre Miller, Michael Mayer, Hendon Hooker at pick 21. And that's it. So we had five guys that didn't quite make the cut. But that wraps up everything for tonight. Dennis, what did you think of our draft, man?
I thought it was a great draft. You know, I know I was talking about Jaden Reed. He was in the same tier with Cedric Tillman. It would have been a coin flip. A couple running backs there, Bigsby and Kendre Miller, that, you know, would have been in consideration. So great draft.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys once again for coming out, joining us on the Better Sports Network, the Dynasty Nerds Show. You can find us each and every Wednesday night from 9 p.m. Eastern Time to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out the Dynasty Nerds podcast that we have week that also comes out on Wednesday. So for myself, I'm Garret Price. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. You can find Dennis on Twitter at Culture Coach. And even Heavy T that joined us. Thank you to Heavy T for hopping in and joining us today. Good luck in your games this week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.